Hello everyone, thanks for joining me today for today's topic. Today I want to talk to you about being duped. And it's something that most Americans are saying, that once they marry someone and then they bring them to their country and then they realize that this person is really not for them. So it's like they're ignoring the warning signs in the beginning, but yet they're seeing it in the end. And this is something that I want to take a look at in the video that we're going to see here, because it kind of helps explains that how when you're trying to do something good for someone and that person really is just out to use you, you're basically out there alone, because even your own government is not going to stick by your side and help you out. So let's take a look at this for a second.
When most Americans walk down the aisle and say I do, they think that love will last forever.
Hit the lottery. I'd found the woman of my dreams.
This military officer, we'll call him Tony, woke up from that dream very quickly. He and his Russian bride, Natalia, dated for about a month and a half before they got married. When did you realize something was up?
1 week later.
In the few days it took Tony to get them an apartment, he says Natalia was gone, back with her old boyfriend.
It was like somebody flipped a light switch.
And that was just the beginning. Tony says a couple of months later, Natalia was back, begging to stay with him, claiming that old boyfriend was abusing her. Tony agreed, but says things got even stranger. Like when she called the police to report that Tony's video game was too violent and scaring her.
Now, let's look at this. She leave the man that petitions her to go to the ex-boyfriend, but to leave the ex-boyfriend and go back to the husband. And yet she wants to say a video game was so violent that it was scaring her. So you see, guys, they're going to use any excuse possible to say you are the bad guy. Okay? If something like a video game scares her, why not just say she feels uncomfortable, or yet just basically sit down and talk about it? Okay? It really makes no sense when you look at it on the surface. But if you look at the big picture, she got to make up some excuse to justify leaving so she can be on her own. So just like she told one guy the same story that she told the other guy, and that's just her way of not taking responsibility for herself.
She tried everything she could to get me to lose control, to lose my temper.
Now he thinks he knows why. An immigrant claiming protection under the Violence Against Women Act, or VAWA, is entitled to legal assistance, benefits, even a fast track to permanent residence in the U.S. And Tony says when he tried to tell investigators he was the victim of marriage fraud, it didn't matter.
They would not look at it. I was really, really disappointed in our immigration laws.
So is John Sampson, who spent 27 years enforcing those laws as an INS and ICE agent.
It's a dirty little secret that most Americans have no idea.
He says in the 10 years since he retired, roughly 1,500 Americans have contacted his consulting firm, saying they're victims of marriage fraud.
I've had engineers, doctors, lawyers, dentists, you name it. I've had them all say, how could I have been so stupid? And my answer is, you weren't stupid. You were in love.
So now you see, after it was all over, the person basically feel like they were stupid. Okay? And like the guy here says, they're in love. I don't think it's a fact of being in love. I think it's a fact of you're ignoring the red flags. Because I feel like this. I can love you, I can care about you, but at the same time, I'm going to acknowledge your misbehavior. Okay? If I already see the warning signs that you're not going to be a person of your word or true to what you're saying, however, then I'm not going to risk my livelihood or my position in life to try to help someone that's not even trying to help themselves. Okay, they're just in it to use me. So this is what's happening here. And I don't think it's a matter of being in love. It's just a matter of ignoring the red flags.
Here, roughly 450,000 U.S. citizens marry foreign spouses and petition to get them legal permanent residency. It's one of the shortest paths to citizenship, and Sampson says fraud in one-on-one cases is almost never pursued.
The risk is huge. Espionage, terrorism, criminal gangs.
Janice Kephart served as terrorism counsel for the 9/11 Commission. She says marriage fraud doesn't just hurt the American spouse, it threatens national security.
I did a study of 94 terrorists. 1/10 of them had gotten in the country and stayed in the country through a sham marriage.
She says investigators should be listening to the U.S. citizens who say they were duped, but VAWA actually prohibits that. Investigators have to treat the American as a, quote, prohibited source of information if their spouse claims abuse. To protect the immigrant's safety, investigators can't even tell the American their spouse filed a VAWA claim.
We know it goes a long way to helping us stop violence against women.
Archie Piatti runs the Tahirih Justice Center, which works with abused immigrants and often files VAWA petitions on their behalf.
And only a few thousand receive the Violence Against Women Act self-petition protection. That shows us that it's doing its job.
She says immigrants are particularly vulnerable because they may face language barriers and lack of access to resources. And she says about 35% of those who apply are rejected.
It's a very robust investigative process, and I don't think it needs to be changed.
Sampson says Americans should at least be able to defend themselves, but this federal directive dismisses that, saying abusers often claim their marriage is fraudulent in order to exact revenge or exert further control over the victim.
It's ludicrous. It denies the fundamental constitutional rights that we as Americans expect.
Tony says when he and Natalia's old boyfriend eventually compared notes, Natalia had told each of them the same abuse allegations about the other. Our efforts to track down Natalia were unsuccessful, although records show she's still living here in the D.C. area.
So do you think she ever loved you?
No, absolutely not. To me, this was worse than being left at the altar.
Victims advocates say it's pointless and even dangerous to interview the accused spouse because no one will ever admit they're an abuser, and some may not even realize they're abusive. VAWA is up for reauthorization by Congress this year. We've spoken with about half a dozen families who say this happened to them. You can read more about their stories in our NBC Washington app. Jody Fleischer, News 4 IT.
Now, let's look at the rejection part. They said 35% are rejected. Now, the 35% we shouldn't even be concerned about. Okay? I'm concerned about the 65%. Those 65% that are accepted, those are the ones that are making the American citizen be the criminal when they're the ones trying to help someone with a better life. Okay? So they want to look at it on the other end as of how many have been rejected. Well, that's fine. Okay? But when you got 65% that are not being rejected and you're not even listening to what the Americans say, you know, that violates their rights to due process. Because everyone should have a right to, one, face their accuser, and two, give their side of the story. And this organization is basically denying you the process of even doing that. So look, you're putting yourself in a situation where you have no win, you see. So this is something you guys really need to think about before you consider bringing anybody here, is what's in it for you. And like it is, it's nothing. Okay, so right here, I'm going to make it plain and simple. Whether the petitioner is abusive or have been duped, the end result should be the same. The immigrant should go back to their home country. That puts everybody back where they started from. Okay? One or the other should not benefit in a sham situation. If the petitioner is abusive, then the immigrant goes back to their country. Then the petitioner is back by themselves. Everybody is back where they started from. Everybody is made whole as what they say in the court. But what they're doing here, they are allowing the immigrant to have more rights than the U.S. citizen. And I don't know about you guys, But I refuse to put myself in a situation where I'm trying to help someone and they get more rights than me, and then I'm looked at as the bad guy. So with this in mind, I hope this shed a little light on that situation, and you guys really consider and think about what you're doing when you're bringing someone here, because there's no win in it for you. There's no benefit in it for you. There's nothing to gain from bringing someone here. The best thing you can do, get your plane ticket, fly over there, visit them. If it doesn't work out, they're back in their home country. They can start over again. They can find a local or whatever they decide to do. But in the end result, it doesn't affect your life. All right, like, subscribe, share. I hope to hear your comments and tell me how you think about this. And see you on the next video. Take care.